Hello everyone, I'm Amber, one of the co-founders of ISOMA, and my other incredible co-founder and a wonderful man that I've been a student of and still am a student of and have been teaching beside since 2012, 13 years or so, is Kurt Awanina. And what I'm going to speak to today, which is really about being an intuitive in a modern culture, and I'm going to talk about my definition of that just so that we're on the same page, because there's so many different iterations of what that means to each person as an individual and within different cultures as well. And this originally was part of a 4-part series, and it still will be, that Kurt and I are holding as a 4-week really training to the wider community. And what I'm going to be doing today is putting a little bit of context around the teachings, because when we don't have context of something that is that can be easily mystified and is something that in the last few hundred years only, compared to the multiple hundreds of thousands of years that intuitive faculties and receptivity and perception were very normal in ancient cultures, then we can it can become blended in with the narratives and the patterns of hyper-individuation and self-gain and impatience and dilution that has happened and still happens to original, wonderful, needed modalities, technologies, and medicines of being able to, that support us to be able to live in more harmony within ourselves, and that feed and nourish humanity's spirit. So there's some really big pieces to that, and I taught live on Monday, the 28th of July, and one of my favorite parts about teaching live is the community, and I got swept up in listening to those who were present share their experience, their opinion, and ask their questions. And it meant that I didn't get enough time left to give some of the foundational contexts of what feels really important in order to recontextualize intuitive receptivity, perceptions through the soma, through the body, through the heart, through other faculties of listening, through oracular, through psychic, through mediumship, which Kurt's he has much more experience, and that's more refined for him, so he's going to speak to that next week. And being able to put this in context means that when whoever's receiving this, even in the future, I feel at ease, and I feel just inspired to know that there are people who care deeply enough about the world and those that they care for and those that they want to support, that they have, there's a shape to it, like there's an edge to it, there's like a riverbed, you know, there's a bridge of understanding that has the whole consideration of how this impacts and ripples out backwards to our ancestors, who are so ever present, whether or not we are in a place where we acknowledge that, communicate with that, receive that, our future, and here around our world. So I have some notes on a sheet of paper in front of me, and I want to start by saying that what I'm going to be speaking to at first is from multiple places, but 2 major places. One, personal experience in the last 6 years where I have my rites of passage work have taken me, they organically led me into a place to look at a deeper fracture in the way in which we approach, practice, receive, and teach ancient technology, ancient modalities, ancient wisdom, which I believe that we inherently have access to, but need to take better care of, and need to have a look at the way that our modern Western culture is shaping the way that we handle these with not as much care as it needs, and a little too much impatience and self-righteousness, and perhaps a little bit of moral rigidity. And my intention and my prayer for the speaking from that experiential place is knowing the shock in my system when I realized how far back the pattern goes, where we have been forgetting to honor the entire world around us, the living world around us, and rooting our orientation of supporting others and making careers out of that, or even hobbies out of that, so that it replenishes and nourishes the whole as opposed to just ourself, self-gain. Which for most it's very unconscious. I know for me it was. I was born as a white woman into a culture that encourages, teaches, go out and grow big, be successful, take life for what it's got. It's really founded on what can I extract from this, what can I gain from this. And while my heart has always been in my work, I really needed to have a look at my conditioning around where the urgency, or the urgency of what I felt I wanted to make, and time, and not having enough time, or not being visible enough, or my brand not being right, and getting caught up and feeling so confused in that and wondering why that felt so uneasy, even though it was the majority of what I saw in the world of, like, you make yourself a brand, this is how you present yourself, this is how to do it right, and that always feeling clunky and awkward and inauthentic, and fighting that within myself. And so there's a personal experience of that part of working in the healing arts industry, and then my personal experience of becoming a mother and feeling the weight of being a parent in a modern world where we don't have community hands to help raise a child, and what that is like as parents who want to keep their child close, and want to make decisions about their health and well-being that's probably outside the majority, and the impact that has on us around support and work and finance and ease of raising a beautiful being in this world, and how difficult and how exhausting it was to try and hold the structure of what it was to be aligned with all of our values without the support of 30 other adult aunties, uncles, grandmas, and hands, and looking for what the fuck happened. Like, this shouldn't be this draining. It shouldn't drive me to insanity. It shouldn't enrage me in this way. And so looking at the curdled grief and the intergenerational patterning, and as far back as I could find into the patterns of where we as human beings separated those who were indigenous to the land, who were in really strong relationship with the element and the spirit and their ancestors, and harmony with each other, in an ecology of reciprocity, and how that was divided and conquered out of greed and power and fear, and how the ripple effect of war, particularly in the modern Australian culture, is impacting our capacity to be able to relate deeply from ourself as human to human in an honest, intimate, connected way, through our heart, through our body, through how we want to give as opposed to just how we can survive in this world, and looking at the impact of war. And so it's a really, this is huge, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So there's that personal experience of where I'm bringing what I'm going to speak to into. There's that's a part of it. And then there's me then seeking teachers to learn and better understand. Dr. Daniel Fjord from Ancestral Medicine. He's the founder of Ancestral Medicine. I've done his courses and studied under him for the last couple of years, as well as Josh Schrei, who is the founder of the Emerald podcast and the Mythic Body. And I've studied under him for a couple of years, as well as the influence of very generous and very beautiful Indigenous wisdom teachers that I've had the honour of apprenticing under. Different ones for the last decade and a half. And so this is like a big soup of this. And the context of that feels important because I also want to share that there are gaps in my understanding. I am still, 6 years is not a long time for this to fully make sense in my entire being, in my entire body, and unlearn everything that stopped me from being in deeper relationship and understanding through my entire system. There's so much to learn. So I want to say that because I'm still learning and I don't know all of this, and there are gaps in my awareness as a human, as a woman, and as a teacher. And it still feels important to share the context that I do have, because I wish someone at the start of my journey of feeling drawn to help people become not just in deeper trust and find their own sense of authority and agency within themselves. Not just that, but for that to then extend into, or that to evolve and to flourish into a healthy relationship with self that then extends into a healthy relationship with other, spirit and land, and the animate world around us. Like animal cultures that were founded on animistic beliefs or ways of being were really, it's not a belief system, and that's a part of this. It was just the way that they were able to stay in coherence and harmony with the world around them. It's how they were thriving. It's how they were deeply content and joyful. These ways were a way that humanity were able to sustain their spirit and the earth and the ecology of the world around them and their communities. They understood that they were not at the top, that they were not the gods. They didn't see themselves as the top thing with the higher knowledge and fully in control. They were a part of the microcosm, and in deep thanks for that. So, given that, I wish someone had introduced me to this bigger context, to this wider view, to a greater awareness of how we walk in this world if we want to be in the industry of the healing arts. It would have saved me stress, anxiety, doubt, unconscious patterns of urgency and burnout, and ways that I used to try and follow the tips or wanting my idea to be the idea that people heard because I thought, fuck, the world needs to hear this, which is an innocent and and ignorant inspiration and passion, coupled with this way that our Josh Schry talks about this, how when we haven't fed, healed, nourished, related to, and listening to our ancestors, the ones that have died, the dead, and in contact and communication with them, how that will come through, and manifest in these unhealthy patterns that we're playing out, particularly in modern white culture. Because if I was sitting around the fire in song with my Brazilian friends, or my First Nations, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander friends, or my Maori friends, what I'm going to say to them would just be like, yeah, the way that we have been separated and severed majorly as a white community or as a white culture through our ancestors' greed and hunger for power and fear and blindness is really hurting us, and so waking up to that, not out of shame or blame or guilt or anger, or maybe those things for you are still important to be with, and I'm not saying neglect those feelings, but I'm saying to wake up to that, to to be reconnected again to that which was so alive for us. I know my ancestors and my bloodline were people who were in deep relation to the animate world, the Celtic, the Norse. My roots go up, my lines go back into the Irish and the Scottish, and the English as well. And so all the way back, they were people of the land. They were a culture of people who spoke to the world. They spoke to the rivers, the winds, the mountains, the trees. They listened to the living world around them, and were in constant common communication with ancestors past, deities, spiritual beings. It was very common. And I would, and if we look at it from that view, that held for most of the existence of humanity, that way of seeing it. It's only the past couple of hundred years or few thousand where we have severed ourselves and disconnected ourselves and are now finding our way back. That if we look at us now, that seems whack. That seems weird and strange and irregular and what? As opposed to how, for me, because I'm going to be talking about more of a somatic dialogue, like a dialogue with our somatic intuitions and our faculties of listening through the body, or the subtle body and the sensations in the body, a little bit of imagery and imagination. That now in modern Western culture is strange, weird, fringe. The perception can be. And after the last decade and a bit of really sinking into this more deeply, it's more and more obvious that we in human history, who, when I say we, as a culture, as a white modern culture, white-bodied modern culture, are the weird ones, the strange ones, in the way that we prioritize, or there's a hierarchy, like there's this internalized, or maybe not, could be externalized, hierarchy of mental dialogue that is just seen as the best. It's superior to our somatic dialogue or our psychic or mediumship with spirit or the world that is alive around us. So, if we look at the way that we've been severed or severed ourselves and stayed severed away from community, and we look at the visions that we receive every single day as ordinary people. I'm talking about that gut feeling that you need to step aside and then something falls off the shelf. Or I have had moments where I've moved my child and then like a ball's gone flying past. These precognitive images or nudges or senses or gut feelings or instincts that we follow, and then afterwards we realize we either put ourselves out of danger or we follow and we find a path that we were looking for, or we think about someone and they call. You know, these very common things that if you were to ask the people around you, even if they, to them, somatic dialogue or psychic receptivity would be strange or fringe or out there, you'd ask them that there's these times where they have had these gut knowings or these images or dreams or instincts or senses or thoughts that just come into their head and they see it after, or it happens after, or maybe perhaps even in the future, or they follow that instinct and there's a benefit in some way. They've been safe from it, or they have seen the very next step to the direction in their life they need to go. If we look at how, as individuals, that's still happening, but when it is not, when our modern culture isn't a place where it's necessarily something that's spoken about or seen as something confirming or solid or trustworthy, we often dismiss it, we reject it, we laugh about it, or we talk about it like it's something like, oh my gosh, I had this premonition, or wow, I had this dream, and it's very out there, and there's or I get, when I work with someone, I just work with them intuitively, and it's more like a cool thing, an identity, a brand. There's a specialness about it. And often a career these days is then birthed from it. There's a self-appointed title of intuitive or healer or spiritual guide or shaman. Or it could just be a sense of specialness in your ordinary everyday work, that you're bringing this extra sense, this extra perceptive sense of intelligence and information that we once adopted as everyday normal life, a way to navigate the world. In more modernity, when we receive that, there's a sense of like, oh, I'm special, or I'm a little bit extra. If we're bringing that into, say, leadership or allied health or counselling or more modern career sections of healing, it's a bit special. And so it puffs up our identity, it puffs up the ego, it puffs up the idea and the specialness of who we are. And that's because it's not in the context of a culture and a community that feeds it, nourishes it, matures it, puts it into apprenticeship, puts it into a central role in the community where this is not just where it's the way that people relate. There's a deep embodied presence, a really deep listening as a way of relating to those around you, the world around you, the nature around you, the spirits in our field. When that is not common and modern and has a place in community and can be held in a container of community and can be nourished and can be heard and is normal and natural, then out of context, it feeds our specialness and our sense of, as an individual, that I have this thing that's special to me, and it can create a distortion. And especially if we use it as a way to try and dominate an industry, or move forward in the industry, or just self-gain, whether that be financially or through attention or through influence. It becomes dangerous, and that's where it can also, you can get spiritual charlatans, so to speak. And there's separation, there's more separation, and what we'll be talking about in the later calls is how we can bring this back into a community ecology where it's central, where it's very ordinary again. It's a really big conversation to have, but my point here is that out of context, visions, premonitions, seeing clearly, spirit, or being a medical intuitive, or having somatic dialogue or deep listening through the body, if that is not held and trained and refined, then it just falls back into that decontextualized, hyper-individuated, self-gaining consciousness that is really deep inside of us, that if we don't have a look at, then we're just adding to the distance between each other, both within the healing industry, but as just human beings in general. And we're potentially feeding the idea that it's fringe or different, and we're also potentially going to be adding confusion, right? So if it hasn't been, if we don't nourish the faculties of listening through the body, if we don't nourish it and refine it, if it's not held under apprenticeship as if you're going to walk in it as a way of working with others in this world, as opposed to it just being a way that we interact in deep listening in common relationship. But I mean, if it's not held and nourished through elders, teachers, reflection from community, if it's not put under slow, grinding practice and training, then how do we ever know, how can we ever really come back to this being something that we can deeply trust as a culture and as a collective when it's not contained, right? When it's not put back into a way of treating it as something to grow over time, to mature, as opposed to it being something that starts to wake up, because there is the intuitive aspect of us waking up. It's coming in waves and waves and waves because it's responding to a world that's asleep. So that's happening. I'm just speaking to how perhaps maybe we could bring back in some patience and some humility and seek community guidance and reflection with our skills, as opposed to doing a shortcut training or doing even just one training, a weekend training, a few weeks training, a 1-year training, and then feeling like, cool, I'm ready to go. Or feeling like, well, I've got this calling and I've had this vision, so I'm just going to follow that vision and I'm going to go out and get it. As opposed to, okay, where can I take this vision to? From a teacher who knows, from someone who has walked with this for a long time, someone who can help me mature this and give it reflection and give it refinement and give it a place to be. It's like community versus self, right? So it's bringing it back into that ecology will help it mature and ensure that it's something that's going to serve the greater, serve all of us, serve the we, as opposed to just serving me, but under the guise of being of service to life or being of service to others. If we're just doing it alone and we don't have that deeper, continuous reflection within community and from our, under apprenticeship, this is a way of being always, right? Under guidance, until we can actually sit in the position of, a few decades of experience under this, right? And even then it's still held in community. It's still contained in a good way. So context and community with visions and psychic and mediumship and somatic dialogue and somatic listening and other faculties of intuition and gut and heart and subtle body and energy body and connection with spirit and connection with this world. Like the context with this as a skill, if you're going to use it as, develop it as a way to work in this world and serve in this world, community, context and ecology is essential. Yeah. So that's the first thing that I want to say. The second point that I want to talk to is the beauty of the slowness. From what I have learnt in my studies of ancestral medicine and what I have understood to be something so essential to look at is that if we are not in dialogue with or connection with or communion with regularly, and I mean like daily basis, though the dead, the dead who died in ways where it's left them fractured, confused, discombobulated, and they're in liminal, but also the dead who are now sitting in the position of guidance over our shoulder to teach us, to guide us, to help us and to support us. And number one, helping those who are in that liminal stuck space go to peace, so to speak, or be at peace or be at ease through ritual and practice and celebration and community. Or we're not building the strength and the depth of our capacity to be able to listen and be in dialogue with the dead and the ancestors who are there to guide us, or the deities and the spirits and the other than human beings and the natural world and the elements, then it's going to manifest inside of us as it'll come in as dreams or urgency or as feeling like we're going to burst if we don't just do this thing, And I certainly need to build that strength and that listening, because I certainly need to double down on my patience. Even me saying double down on my patience, you can see like the ways that it's just built into us to like do it well now. But it's like to strengthen my capacity to be at ease with right timing, right? Ancestral connection is so important. And if you look at ancient cultures, that it's standard. Like having spirits, having communion with spirits and having connection with spirits and having conversations and asking questions and including them in community decisions were essential. It's like we have a history to learn from. It's not just in the past we cut it off, move on. It's like they have things to teach us. They have wisdom to carry on. There are prayers for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years of wisdom, of intelligence, of technology, of remembering, of the future, of the patterns that would give us so much ease, direction, and clarity in the now if we built it. And so there's this way that we can perhaps begin to include a slowness and a patience and a humility that is in stark contrast to the speed, to the get it now, to the grow, to the do your best, to the be the best, to be the success, which we are a culture that's rooted in the West and modernity, particularly the white West, like Australia, UK, America. These are these major colonized places where that urgency and that bigness and that nowness and that meanness and that self-centeredness is so in conflict with slow down, be at ease. Listen, make room, make space for ritual, make space for communication, where it's not this mystical specialness thing that we just put on our Instagram, that we just put, that we identify with and wear. And it's a very, very difficult thing to separate ourselves from. I find it difficult. I find that the visibility of social media adds this adaptive layer of where our ache to belong and to be more deeply connected to the world around us and to each other blurs the line of being able to show up without a front. There are times where I just wonder who I would be if people didn't see me, that I question and I ask for reflection because I can feel the way that it influences me. And I would prefer to know who I am without that. I think I would find my way in the world with much more ease. And I also understand and appreciate and do experience that when this turns into a career, there's money involved. And so the pace and the urgency and the branding and the getting it right and the moral rigidity and the lack of listening to right timing or serving only where we are, only what we have relationship with and built relationship with and are blessed and have permission. Yes, inner authority, but sometimes, particularly with Indigenous practices, there's two conversations here, but it's important to do that in the way that it was once held in community and respect and reverence, because it prevents the charlatan, it prevents the distortion, it prevents the misguidance, it prevents the self-centeredness of those practices, it prevents appropriation, right, and misappropriation. So doing these things in a good way and listening to those lineages and learning from those elders and receiving blessings from them and spending time in right relationship with them is so important, so that we don't cause more harm, and that the way that we're walking, particularly if it's in a career and there's money involved, it's still in right relationship. And I know that there's a struggle with survival that comes into that we're trying to, I'm definitely finding the balance with. So I'm going to be getting today, but this is a long context, but it's honestly, I believe it's a really important conversation. The other piece that I want to speak to, because I'm going to be talking to the somatic faculty of listening, like the subtle body, the energy body, the feeling body, the gentle nudges, the gut, the heart, the instinct, the womb, the hara, the open channels in our systems that can be an instrument of listening when we're working with another, or when we're making decisions of guidance of how to walk and what to create and how to move. I'm going to get to that, and I'm going to introduce a practice for that, just to get a felt sense and experience of that. And just like receiving visions or information or seeing or intuitive receptivity and listening in the modern world, in this more modern West culture, can be woo-woo or dismissed as much more inferior than logic, understanding, fact, scientific base, research, then so is a way of being in relationship with. So let me put that in a different way. Let me tell you about someone who deeply inspired me actually for this work. Martin Buber. He was a Jewish philosopher, and his work and his study and his teachings were around relationship and the way that we relate. And so he spoke about the difference between an I-it relationship and an I-thou relationship. An I-thou relationship is person to person, being to being, human to human, or just relating to someone, as opposed to I-it relationship is an object. It's objectivity. Modern therapy, more modern therapy, psychology, counseling, allied health, medicine, personal training, coaching, leadership, most of it is I-it. And that is because of the more recent generations of colonization, or just think of the consciousness or the blueprint of colonization, which is more about objectivity. What can I get from this? What can I what can I extract from this? What can I gain from this object? What can I get out of this land? What can I mine? What can I extract from this indigenous culture? What can I take? What can I have? What can I, take off? Like, it's an object for me to get something from. It's not a relationship of reciprocity and influence and being impacted, being affected, being porous, being relating to. Like, there's no back and forth. It's just an object that I get. So in animist cultures or animist ways of thinking, everything is alive. The world is alive. There's an intelligence of the world. It's a way that we relate to life from the moment, it's a deeply rooted way of being. And I actually believe that is the most natural way for us as humans to be, because it's a natural way that feeds our human spirit, and because we can very clearly see that when we relate to the world objectively, that it causes destruction, chaos, and death. Painful death, usually. We're seeing it in the world right now. So it's very clear that objective relating doesn't really feed, doesn't really nourish, it does more harm. I studied medicine. I studied medical science and graduated as a radiation therapist, which is cancer therapy. And I'm not coming from, and I'm not saying that the medical world or the therapy world or the allied health world is bad or wrong, or the coaching or personal training, that it's wrong and that it doesn't do good and that it doesn't serve a purpose. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there is a way that we can relate to each other, and a way that we can relate to those that we're wanting to help and serve in our career and the world around us, that is much more nourishing. That is much more, that feeds our human spirit, that feeds that feeds the ecology of community, that feeds the greater good, as opposed to it just being something where if you are to be with a patient or a client, that you're listening, you're taking the information that you've learned mentally, that you've studied, that you've learned, that you've had a tick box in, that you've received, the green light on. Okay, cool, you've passed this, you know this, now you've passed, now you can do that. And where it's analysis of information and there's an objective way that it's analyzed, and then there's a solution from that. All right. Sound familiar? Now, if we move, Martin Buber's work also, he described, let me see if I can remember this correctly. He described the I-thou relationship, like the relating, the personal relating, as qualities of deep, honest, intense, ineffable, and there was one more that I can't remember in this moment. But I want you to consider, if you're someone, actually just consider the way that you relate to people, the way that you relate to the beach that you swim in, the water that you drink, the mountains that you like to go hiking on, the rocks that you like to collect, the food that you eat, the friends that you have, the world, the winds that create the storms, the rain from the sky, the fire that warms you, the heat and the electricity in your life that helps you function. If you're to relate to that in a way that's deep, like there's depth to it. You're not assessing it for what it can give you and what you can gain from it. There's depth. When you're with it, you're not thinking about other things. You're not analyzing. You're not in the future about what's going to happen, or the past about what's happening. You're not in your head in analysis about yourself when you're another. Like there's not a insecurity, a self-assessment, a them assessment. There is you right here in your body, in your felt body, with your feelings. Feelings as in sensations, temperature changes, contractions, expansions, movement, rhythm in the body, aliveness in the body. Not emotion. Emotion as well, but when I say feeling, I'm meaning feeling, like the raw, somatic feeling. You're with the feelings in your body. You're here and you're present with the energy in your system, right? And you're listening from that place. You're relating to them from that place. And there's a depth and there's an honesty. Imagine coaching or leading a team and only ever being honest. Only ever being honest. Imagine having a call with someone about working with them, or them attending your course, or doing your retreat, or being a client, or signing up to this, or taking on your advice for that. Imagine doing it in a way that had no hint of your agenda in it, or your idea about what was right, the exact thing that had to be done. There was an agendalessness. There was an incredible honesty. Imagine relating to that to your children, your partner, your friends. All conversations, honest. You said no when you wanted to say no. You said yes when you wanted to say yes. You spoke about your feelings in the moment. It wasn't all just about your needs. There was a way in which you were with the other person and allowing yourself to be impacted by what was also going on in their world. It was a present, honest, intense, because it's intimate. Like when there's that quality of presence, you can see the person and they can see you. And modernity has encouraged us, has conditioned us to be usually what someone else, what meant that was going to guarantee acceptance and love and belonging from our primary caregivers and the world around us. Most people are living through adaptive strategies, identities, chameleons, shape-shifting, undefined, confluent ways of self-judgment, self-analysis, and projection. Defensiveness, deflection. Right? And they're not able to really be with themselves, let alone another. Does that feel or resonate, or is that familiar in any way? I'm just sitting with that. I've sat with this a lot. I teach about this. I think about this. I do my best to orient and teach from this place. And it still blows my mind of this paradox of feeling sad that that's absent, but deeply inspired that that's always available and right there for us. So there's depth, there's intimacy and intensity, there's honesty, and the ineffable part of it. I'm going to look up what the other word was because I remember it's such a beautiful description. I'm asking Grok, which is a variation of Google. See if I can find it. It's telling me about mutuality. All right, let me get to that. So the ineffable piece is something that we can't describe because it's beautiful. It doesn't have words. You know, the English language is a sucker for this. It flattens words. I love learning about other languages and learning words in other languages and phrases. For some time, I had relationships with and still have friendships with Norwegians, and learning that language was just such a beautiful and eye-opening thing. Because one word for them, like hygge, That word it describes a scene. It describes a whole scene. It describes a somatic experience of the scene. In its description, it comes with almost like an energetic imprint that's known in the culture to the people. It's just such a beautiful, so hygge is, every person will also describe it differently, but there will be this sameness about the description, and it's always like a coziness, and they'll describe it as, it's like you're sitting in front of the warm fire drinking a hot cup of tea, or it's like you're cuddling up to your favorite person in front of the fire. You know, there's always a warmth to it, there's a connection to it. Like hygge is one example of a word, of one phrase in a language that has a feltness to it. Whereas the English language is very flat. It's very objective. It's like, this means that. You know, we're meaning makers. So, the ineffability is like that quality to it. There's a feltness to it. There's a withness of it. I'm saying this. This isn't what Martin describes it, but there's a spirit to it. You could even say a magic to it. You know, that's a lover of mythical, magical stories and old tales and books. And there's that quality with lands, winds, waters, fire, stars, cosmos, moon, sun, plants, vegetation, food, animals. Ancient cultures, that's how they related to the world around them. That's how they prayed. Their prayers and their songs and their community gatherings were usually around celebrating people as they transition through different stages of responsibility and participation or welcoming of the community, birth, naming, life, death. You're now this role, this is your place where you belong in our community, or a moving through of grief, or a moving through of, if there was sickness in one person, it was the whole community's responsibility and they would take care of it. If there was conflict, they would celebrate it because it was a deepening of relationship and an opportunity for connection. Like they would tend to it through song and celebration. So there was a gathering for that, or there was gathering for deep, reverent respect and ritual thanks to the elements, to the seasons, to the world around them, for which they could not survive without. They wouldn't exist. There was a thanks and a respect and a reciprocity through feeding, through their energy, through their heart, through their song, through their offerings of flowers and foods and symbolism of that, symbols that held energetic imprints of feeding, of vortexes, of portals, of altars to refeed the earth and the elements and the world that meant we could exist and be alive. That's the way that they lived. There was a deep contentment and reciprocity and thriving and nourishment that was the ecology. It was the way that they were. Imagine that in our ordinary life, with the water we drink, with the food we eat, with the flowers that we pick. Imagine altar being like an altar, having an altar in your home that your children knew to feed, to offer back to life. It really, really, really hit something so deep inside of me. And I wonder if inside of you too. So this is a way to be in right. You hear about right relationship from Indigenous cultures and from ancient cultures and animist viewpoints and cultures that were rooted in relationship with the land and the world around them. Right relationship is this. It's a reciprocity. It's an actual sincere connection with, a seeing, an appreciation, an entering. There's a shared field of relationship. That's what right relationship. You know, when it's said, it's about relating. It's all about what can I give, not just what can I receive. What can I get from you? Objective. What can I give? What's the reciprocity here? That was it. There's so much more I could say to that, and some really wonderful books that I could recommend on Indigenous wisdom are Deer and Thunder. Deer is in the animal, Deer, and Thunder, Braiding Sweetgrass, and Sand Talk. They're all three really incredible books that remind us of the ways that the ancients and the Indigenous live to ensure that everything is nourished, everyone is taken care of. So now that sets us up to think about, I'm just looking at my notes, that sets us up to really take in now what I'm going to teach and give an example of as far as a somatic dialogue with those that you work with. So it's like all of this. Because if I just take it out of context and teach you a skill, it becomes something that you can just use as a tool to do. You know, it's not within this relational system. So thank you for your patience for listening to that. So I wrote a little Substack. It was just a little Substack which I want to already change, because once I've written something, it works itself through me. And I have been thinking about this video all week, and I had to come, and I just wanted to put language to it in a different way. But I wrote a definition so that when I speak to it, you know what I mean. And so my definition of an intuitive, which is the opposite. I see the irony. The opposite of, I'm reducing something down, but it's hopefully you're getting it within the context of it, and so we can kind of be on the same page here. An intuitive, through my eyes when I'm saying the word, is someone who is aware of these other extra listening faculties, like psychic mediumship, vision, oracular vision, spirit, possession of spirit, as in like spirit coming in, speaking to you, trance states, sensitivity through the somatic body, the energy body, the heart, the hara, the soul, the receiving, right? Us as an instrument of listening. The intuitive is someone who is aware of that and feeds and matures it. That's what I mean when I say an intuitive. Inherently, these are human capacities. These are human capacities. These are not special things that are extra. These are inherent human capacities. And there are people who receive all of this, but it's not a career. How many off branches? I do just want to say that I don't think that everyone, and this is why I don't believe, I'm of the opinion that not everyone who senses these intuitive faculties and capacities and receptivity and perceptions should suddenly do it as a career. In fact, I have thought so much about getting a different career, like doing, just considered what my work would be like if my money was earned elsewhere. I don't know what doing. And the refinement and the training and the apprenticeship that I have put myself through, and assume I will for the rest of my life, was something that I could serve community without having to charge. Now, I know there is so much in that of like our perception of reciprocity is currently money is one of the things that we use. It was the main source of reciprocity in our current culture. But I just wonder how much of a misplaced longing to belong turns people or drives people to turn these faculties, their listening and receptive faculties, intuitive gifts, into something that they suddenly make money on or identify with. So, okay, now that that's said, take that all in. I'm just considering which practice I teach or which thing that I teach. And I want to forewarn you that it's very, very simple. It's really simple stuff. And we would do well to humble ourselves to know that just because it's simple doesn't mean we're good at it. Because one of the things that gets in the way of us being really connected to and having accuracy with and being receptive and clear in our perception of these dialogues and communications and messages, what gets in the road is our mind. It interferes. And because at the severance from this way of relating that I've spoken to pushes humans up into their intellect, right? We depend. There's this, even if we want to trust our somatic body or trust our intuition, even in when we say our intuition, it's like we own it, but it's like if we think about it more as conversation and dialogue with the animate world and with spirits and with this, which is actually part of a system, right? It's part of an ecosystem, the intuition almost, or the guidance. Anyway, if we want to learn to trust it, we need to realize how much we are in our head and how much that actually severs us from and distorts our perception and our receptivity and our capacity to be able to translate and communicate it. It's this. It's this. It's the mind. And I have a very busy one. So it's not, it's a human thing that we get to, work with. And I believe that we would do better to move our intense attention from trying to stop the mind or being of no mind, which I think neither are like good advice or smart goals to have, because it's a phenomenon that happens and can be used as a tool. It's not an enemy. It's not something to crush or get rid of. It's just, what are we feeding? If we feed this by always giving it all of our attention and not realizing that there's a whole world of communication and intelligence here and here. So if we take it away from trying to stop this and more feed these relationships and our relational connection and our receptivity and our care and attunement to this instrument, this would just quieten down. It's like we stop feeding that and we start feeding this, we'll be on track, with much more depth and with far less struggle and inner conflict. So the way that I am encouraging and the reason that iSoma exists and the reason that Kurt and I do this in the first place and the guest teachers that we chose all have our value rooted in a receptivity, a trust, a listening to, a refinement of the faculty of intuition, right? And receptivity to that and translation of that and accuracy of that. And from a relational standpoint, from an honest, intimate standpoint. That's what all the guest teachers do in their field, in their particular work, and that's where we orient from. And feeding that and nourishing that feels like the thing that we best know how from the practice and our vision, humanity, in a way that we can contribute in the best way. So that's really what I'm saying here. That's what I'm speaking to. And so the practice that I'm going to take you through now is taking you deeper into that place and then getting you to have a little bit of dialogue with yourself and another. and maybe even spirit if you want to. So if you are multitasking and listening to this right now, I invite you to not, if you can. And because physical stillness helps with the mental stillness at first when you're not practiced at this. And honestly, like even if you are have been doing this for a very long time, just be a student for a second. Just be a student. Okay, we can all learn. And I'm speaking to myself there too. Just pretend you know nothing for a second. You might be able to receive this, what you already know, in a different way. It might land differently. It could refine something. It could just, the best yoga, the best corrections in posture in yoga that I have ever had have been tiny. So I have a really strong 15-year long-standing yoga practice, and every single class, my teachers, my teacher that I'm able to get to currently with my schedule, my son, I learn something from her. Every single class, she refines my posture and it opens and lets the flow through, and it puts me into a more energetically efficient position, which nourishes and strengthens in all the right places and reduces the damage of the incorrect posture or tension or pushing that I would otherwise be holding if I shut myself off from listening, right? So it's the micro adjustments that have helped my practice the most. Same here. So firstly, if you can, don't move. Secondly, if you can, close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that. There's a lot of information and busyness in the mind that comes from what we see in the world, because it's one of the main ways that we resource information. So close down the eyes, and if you can, just get really still in the body. One way to come into deeper contact with yourself is the breath. And not trying to control it or enhance it, but just pay attention to it. You might like to close your mouth and just breathe through the nose. And I find that if I make the breath smooth, soft, and silent, the response of my body is to use my diaphragm muscles, and the breath will go lower in the belly. Well, it will go low. The diaphragm will press down and push my belly out. And it prevents us from chest breathing, which puts us into a sympathetic state. When we're in a sympathetic state, as in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, the part of our brain that needs to be in what's ventral vagal, and this is Stephen Porges' work from polyvagal theory. This is, the science behind this very ancient wisdom, or some of the modern science. The part of our brain that is responsible for being able to relate feel safe and connected is switched off when we're in sympathetic. So that smooth, silent, diaphragmatic breath, after a few breaths, or it might require a few minutes for some, will also relax the hypertension in the muscles. If you imagine if you were an animal in the wild, if you heard a sound and you're a predominantly prey in a predator environment, like a gazelle to a lion, then if you hear some sounds, I just want you to imagine now how your body tenses. All right, it's like shoulders go up, neck muscles tense down, they shorten, the body curves over. This is a restricted, curved spine, forward head, tight hip flexors, tight hips, weak core, compressed lungs, depressed physical posture, contracted. So if we exaggerate that, a lot of people are in some variation of that state most of their waking hours. But if we breathe in this way and we open the body and we breathe using the diaphragm, that soft, smooth, slow, silent breath, then the tension, the micro tension in the muscles that is there almost unconsciously for some, which can be really hard to switch off even if you're doing this, relaxes a little. And then I like to breathe into my feet. I literally just follow my breath in and I soften my eyes, my gaze. I don't look down, but it's as if my attention is downward. And feeling the inside of my hands and feet helps. Really, it's a meditative present state, but we're just bringing more attention to it so that we can have a greater connection to this instrument and be more receptive to the intuitive dialogue, somatic dialogue, as we do this practice. So feeling inside the hands, inside the tummy, inside the chest. I'm wearing a denim jumpsuit. It does not help me take a deep breath low. Even our clothes restriction, right, has an impact. And just see if you can notice I like to do it between hands, the energetic feel just outside of your skin. So if you bring your palms close, you can do it slow. You can go from 30 centimeters and come slowly in and see if you can. I actually, when I get to about here, I guess this is about 15, 20 centimeters away, I feel like I'm meeting something more solid energetically. And as my hands get closer, that increases. The pulse on my fingers increase, the energy in my hands increase. I can feel it. So that's a really cool, simple way just to bring attention to the energetic field on the edge outside of you. And then you might like to close your eyes and extend that awareness inside the hands and inside the body to that energetic field in the body. And if you are experiencing numbness, that's okay. It really is. For some people, they need to. I had to develop this over years of practice. The first time I had she was a counselor and also energy healer and an astrologer, very, very wise old woman in her 70s. She put a hand on me and said, "What do you feel?" What do you mean? What do I feel? I don't know, I feel good. It's in 2011, 2012. And so it can take time to develop this, and we can have numb spots in the body. But right now we're just seeing if we can notice the energetic field within the physical. And the feeling body, let's go to that. I can feel like a tension around my heart. That would be the 2 shots of coffee I had this morning. or maybe some backed up grief. I'm joking. It could be, but I'm just making fun of how we make meaning of everything, being facetious. Might notice what's happening in your lower abdomen. You know, most of my communication is through that front body, through that front channel, not really even down into my legs, but it's really good to ground down into the feet, down into the earth, and anchor your energy. A really dear friend of mine and a teacher, Michael Gay, he's a psychotherapist, very spiritually rooted and mature in his connection of this way. He uses a practice of a golden orb, a golden ball, coming from the core, from his center, and then burying it in the earth. And it really has a very, very strong, palpable shift in stability through that energetic practice. And so if there's a part of you like, come fucking hurry up, I just want you to notice the little incessant, insatiable aspect of getting to the point, or hurrying it up so I can get it. Hurry up, come on, come on. Our impatience. Just, part of this practice is patience and slowing down. Really is. You might want to feel the pulse in your body. I feel a little bit of nerves because I'm teaching. And I don't know who's going to see this. It's just a human part of me that's concerned about judgment and visibility of the world outside. Okay, so the last one is spirit. If you think the body is the earth element, the waters, our sensation, feeling, and emotion. Some people say air as well because the current of things follows the current. But for now, feeling body is water for this particular context. And the fire, our spirit. So I wonder if you can feel, you'll notice your inner animate force inside of you. The aliveness. Different to physiological energy, but even though that's made up of that stuff too, it's has a different tone to it, has a different quality, a different purity. Might not be the right word, but a little bit more otherworldly than the physical body. And see if you can reach in, or if that's in reach for you. And then I want you to imagine someone in front of you that you might be guiding, mentoring, coaching, therapy session, in your clinic, in your classroom, under your guidance somehow, under your parenting. Imagine being with them in this way. You're not posturing as anyone or anything. Superiority is dissolved, which is usually an internalized sense of superiority that in the West we have because it's embedded in our culture. You might have all your human things happening inside of you, but they're not. You're not trying to hide them. So you might feel nervous or a little bit vulnerable or a little unsure, and that's palpable. You're not hiding it. You're not trying to control it or modify yourself. You're just here. And I want you to feel the quality of ease, where if you were talking, presenting, teaching, ritualizing, holding ceremony, guiding, parenting, making love, relating, writing, painting, interviewing, speaking, whatever. How you might be able to reach in and orient from this place and allow what is so unique in your expression and translation of wisdom and knowledge and skill that can come through from here. I have a list of different certifications and trainings and qualifications and teachers and apprenticeships and graduate certificates and a bachelor, and all of those things come with me when I'm working with someone or working with a group or holding rites of passage or teaching. It all comes with me. But it's in the background as opposed to this being in the foreground. This way of being, this way of relating is the foreground, and the other stuff kind of takes whatever shape it needs to, but it moves through more as a resonant impulse, like an impulse that I get that is influenced by the field that is created through my presence and orientation of this place that I am with another or with a group, because it invites others into that place. It's like you create an opening for them to come into that quality of resonance and openness and presence. And yes, it can actually be disarming for some people, and it can cause incoherence and disturbance in their system because of the quality of seeing, because of your presence, and you have more faculties of listening, like the soma, the body, the energy body, the field, the heart, all of that. From that place, there's so many different pathways of listening and information that the intelligence, that the animate world, that perhaps spirits, psychic images, that can come through you when you're in this place. So there's a lot more than just the things that you have learnt that can come through. And what's in the field that's created between you and the other, and this applies to you and mountain, you and river, you and the water you're drinking, you and the animal flesh you're eating. Like this is right. So the field that's created is always different and unique to the people, and each time. So what I will receive and how I will receive it is different depending on the person in front of me or the people in front of me. It's always different. And that's why every single session I do is so very different, or every single retreat or teaching or workshop or guidance or rite of passage. Everything is always different. It's always very unique to the moment. There's certain frameworks and pillars and boundaries that it's contained within, but it's what the painting actually is. I might always have a canvas with a 40 by 60 canvas and these colours and these paintbrushes to use, but what's on the canvas and what shows up is always different. And so there has to be a level of humility, agendalessness, no expectation, and a quality of a vulnerability that stays there where you're not guarded. You're grounded, but you're not rigid, right? You're embodying the earth, the element of the earth. You're grounded, but you're moist, right? A healthy earth is moist. If it dries up, it cracks, it breaks, it's brittle. So you're moistened by your quality of receptivity, yeah. Because you can if you're connected to the feeling body, then it can nourish it's the waters, so it nourishes the earth body. And if you're connected to your fire, or you're feeding your fire through ritual, right? Because ritual, being devoted to something, having a practice of some kind, whether that's tying prayer bundles every day, or whether that's raking the front lawn, or whether it's watering the grass, or whether it's saying goodnight to the sun and the moon, or whether it's bringing your love breakfast, or whether it's shaking the hands of the brothers and looking them in the eye each time you see them at work. Like if you have some kind of ritual that connects you deeply to something or someone in the present moment, if you have a metaphorical prayer mat to kneel on and give thanks to and be reverent of, because we're humans and we have a mind and we're busy and we don't want to take time for this, it requires us to have a little bit of friction, right, to create heat, to feed our fire. And that fire means that the water doesn't go cold, that we don't become cold and icy. And that heat helps growth, stimulates growth. So the sun, right, the fire, keeps things warm. And then that means that information, when we're grounded, comes through, it's moistened, it's nourished, it's flowing, it has spirit, it's animate, and it's how we are animated. We allow ourselves to be animated. Right? If you meet people when they're not animated, they're like rigid and they're here, that's like their fire is usually fucking suppressed. And then you've got heart, air, communications, where that our capacity to relate, when all those three elements are embodied through our presence, our capacity to be able to have relationship through the heart, to repair. That field, there's some epic science and research that shows the strength of that field and the quality of the resonance of authenticity being more impactful than anything else. And then we can move up to the throat. It's like vibration. Ether. It's space, but it's also vibration because it turns into translation. And then if we go up, kind of like when we're in this space, it's like we're in the liminal, we're in the void in a way. When I'm working with someone or a group, or even now, I've done it this whole time, you'll see I often am not, it's like my eyes are somewhere else. It's like I'm in another space while I'm here at the same time. Like I'm in that field of nothing and everything, of in between, in a way, and that's how the information is allowed to flow. It's like the opposite of me thinking. As soon as I'm thinking, I'm recalling information. I'm getting information. So that's not bad. It's just not it's far less information that comes through, and it's very limited, and it's very has my personal human imprint on it. It's a mind, right? It's just a little echo chamber. Whereas this, spirit can be guiding you. I often find the strength of the spirit and the ancestors. Whenever I work with anyone who's has an Indigenous bloodline right now. I get so nourished by their ancestors that come through, like the strength of the guidance of their ancestors. I get nourished by. It's really, really something special. They're often, whenever I've worked with Indigenous people in one-on-one, they're a lot more spirit energy, a lot more, it's like the presence of the actual being, the spirit of that being is so much stronger than with white-bodied people. Unfortunately, not always, but it's definitely a difference that I've noticed over the years of working. So, yeah, the void, it's like we're in that liminal, so it's that relationship with that element of the void, which is the same as that end of the breath and before the next end of the exhale, before the inhale, it's the void. And all of the stories of, most of the old stories, everything always starts from the nothing, the darkness, the waters of the void. There's always a void, or there's a void in the part of the death and rebirth cycle, because it's the field of potentiality, right? So you're connected to the field in the void, in a way, in the liminal. And then up is light, and Kurt's going to be talking to more that psychic light, image, visual, geometry, symbolism that comes through. That void, that light, all colours of the rainbow, all colours. And he's going to be talking more about that element, so to speak, that light body. And the communication with that, or connection to that layer. So I feel that that's a lot to take in, and then that's a really good practice for you to begin with. If you can get into that and work with someone from there, then all of the things that you've studied and all of the knowledge that you have, they get to be there, but there's so much more that you get to listen to at the same time. One of the questions that always get asked that's so common is, how do I tell the difference between my intuition and fear? They have a different tone to it. It's got a different voice. Kurt used this incredible metaphor recently in a recent teaching with the last intake of our practitioner path students, where he said that it's like and if you don't have a child, just think of your partner, or think of your parents, or think of someone who you know really well, whose voice you know. That if you were blind and all of your other senses except your hearing was taken away, you would know the voice of your child or your parent or your lover in a crowd. You would know it. You can pick it up. So it's time in relationship with. It's practice. And that's why I wanted to teach this in context to it being a relational capacity, because it's information coming in and out from the animate world, from spirits, from ancestors, from beings, and the information of your and the language of how that comes through, or the way that comes through, is different in everyone's body. So you have to learn like your own tone, your own voice. For me, so much of my information comes through as a combination of imagery, and sometimes I do get the emotional imprint of someone. Sometimes I get the physical pain that like mirrors where it is for them. Sometimes I get the energetic feelings, but often they're just energetic impulses and that bring my attention towards something that I use not as a concrete meaning-making thing, like, oh, that's this, so that means that, or my heart's hot, you must be angry. It guides me for deeper inquiry. And it tells me that I'm really with the person, and I'm letting their field of intelligence and their intuition and the field we're creating together influence me and influence. So it's a mutuality, right? It's that mutuality that Martin Buber spoke of as a quality of this kind of I-thou relationship. If you have questions, I'm so happy to answer them. The next part of this 4-part series is with Curdy, and I have seen that man in spiritual communication and spirit connection and conversation and dialogue and transmission for hundreds of hours. I've sat with him for hundreds of hours. It could be thousands. I know for certain it's hundreds. What's 12 years, 13 years of sitting beside someone who does that? Probably, most likely, yeah, definitely thousands of hours. To the point where I have been able to build a relationship with the spirits that come through, because there are ones that are more dominant than others for him. Other beings, other bodies of intelligence. And for someone who studied medical science, it blew my fucking world open. You know, it's not that I didn't think it was real beforehand. It's just that I hadn't seen it in the real life. And it's just, and I love the way that Kurt is a very ordinary, average, like he thinks nothing more special of himself than the next person. Not at all, nothing. And he was, he was born with a stronger connection to this gift. It was fairly, like, since he was young, it was very tuned in. It was very natural for him. We can all fine tune it, but some people like Kurt, the first time he meditated, he was in a different world. Anyway, I'll leave that story for him to tell. And that's why we work well together in ISOMA, and we love working together because we're very yin and yang in that sense. We complement each other very well, and I learn from him so much. And yeah, he's going to be teaching that next bit of that more psychic mediumship and the qualities of what that looks like, that being able to discern, being able to listen, being able to fine tune. And our our third session is going to be with a live breathwork session that's going to be more based on the body and the development of communication and listening to our intelligence. So it will be a live breath journey that I'm going to guide, and Kurt's going to play music and sound and song in. And that's going to be done live, and that'll be our third session. In the fourth session, we're going to be talking about all of this, about how we can begin to, as an industry, come back together and reorient this in, recontextualize it back in a way that we live back into our communities, and how we can build that into what we do. So thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor to share this, and yeah, just a reminder that I'm still learning. I'm still walking beside you on this. So we'll see you in the next call. Much love.